For me, the different religions are beautiful flowers from the same garden, or they are branches of the same majestic tree. Therefore, they are equally true, though being received and interpreted through human instruments equally imperfect. Mahatma Gandhi. This morning, I would like to talk to you about our third Unitarian Universalist principle: acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Personally, it is love that leads me to accept and encourage those around me. Love for one another and of one another. Arms connected, traveling forward whilst reaching for spiritual growth together, no matter what path each of us has chosen. It is a beautiful thing, and it's almost as if we share the same spiritual language with an array of cool paths to make our way forward. These thoughts, along with Reverend Collins' last sermon, led me back to former ideas about the Tower of Babel. When in college, I found myself wondering about Genesis 11, 1 through 9, which is as follows: And the whole earth was of one language and one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. And they dwelt there. And they said to one another, Come, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad in the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children builded. And the Lord said, If, as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down, and therefore confound their language, and that they might not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad and thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore it is named, the name of it called Babel, confusion, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. One language. Just imagine if everybody in the world just shared one language. Due to human nature and a bit of realism, I do not believe that sharing the native tongue would suddenly stop war, starvation, torture, and the like world round. But it would certainly change the manner in which the world communicated. And what if religion and spirituality was that way? What if we all perceived spiritual growth in that same way? Adapting a quote from playwright George Bernard Shaw, what if there was only one religion, but said religion had 100 different versions? With that universal language and understanding of all the different versions would most certainly have altered the quite bloody path that religions have taken over the centuries. Or, as author Keith E. Johnson wrote, is it possible that Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, etc., represent different yet valid paths to the same destination? Were this the case, there would be no need to argue about which religion is true. Such disputes would be pointless. Perhaps viewing religion in this way would eventually lead to less religious bigotry and greater cooperation amongst people of differing faiths. When traveling on this particular train of thought, the words that echo in my ears are actually Gandhi's. The essence of all religions is one, only their approach is different. Interestingly, author Alan Beveridge wrote the following adapted quote: Most are aware that Christianity's roots lie in Judaism, but there are also elements of Greek, Egyptian, Tyrian, and even nomadic star worshippers of Chaldea's beliefs within it. Just as Judaism itself was affected by other belief systems in the Middle and Far East prior to Christianity. Continuing the analogy, the mental houses within a community, culture, country, or belief system tend to have a lot of similarities. With each spiritual or religious path heading up the same, so to speak, mountain, encouraging one another as Unitarian Universalists do each and every day. Imagine the beauty that would thrive all over the world. If all paths coalesce, we would indeed all flourish. Although we do not have the same language, some do believe that all religious or spiritual paths are headed in the same direction, though others would argue vehemently against this idea. It is my belief that it is more probable than one deity being the only way to make your way on the path up that mountain. And in reference to that infamous tower, I say, wouldn't it make sense that if all the world's people were scattered about the earth, that different spiritual paths would inevitably occur? Experts hold that much of who we are is shaped by our early experiences in life. A child brought up in New Orleans, Louisiana, will have massively different experiences than a child brought up in Davenport in the Northern Territory of Australia. In fact, the number of differences concerning each person's experiences in early childhood development will inevitably differ. Or, as author Alan Beveridge wrote, our minds start to develop from the day we are born and continue to grow and change throughout life. Thoughts are created from our reactions to experiences. Our mind arise out of interactions between our thoughts and the structures they form as a result. Arguably, early experiences have the largest influence on our minds as they become the foundation, framework, and infrastructure of our mental house. This is where the full measure of the power of our beliefs comes into play, as these thoughts have the greatest influence over us. I smile when I think that if we all shared a universal language, people could end up on their own path, sharing experiences that offered opportunities of spiritual growth with one another. Imagine that all over the world, learning from each other, all the while flourishing together. Indeed, Unitarian Universalism offers such an experience, and it is so lovely. I am not in any way suggesting that UU is meant for all, and that the world would be a better place if everyone chose that path. Rather, if the world supported each person's right to journey on the path they chose, progressing on said path would allow so many to prosper. Back to reality for a bit. I believe that religious or spiritual intolerance is based on ethnocentrism. It is, in point of fact, the path that has inevitably led to bloodshed throughout time. I also believe that human beings do currently and have throughout history assume that their expertise, no matter the speciality or subject, have given them the most, if not all, the answers based upon their particular field of study. A geologist might say that the Earth itself offers a peek into the changes that have occurred throughout history. This is true. A psychologist could say that their field of study explains the path of human behavior throughout time. This is true. An expert in history could say that human beings repeat the same mistakes over and over again. This is also true. If all of these things are true, perhaps each field of study has just one piece of the puzzle. Each religious belief system that I have studied makes a clear claim that their way is the one and only way forward towards a path of salvation. But what if they each only had one piece of the puzzle? And as humans are finite creatures in an infinite universe, what if each religious or spiritual path is only a small bit and it is that particular piece's path that works for each person? That is my perception of one of the largest questions we as humans struggled with over time. Author Keith E. Johnson explains this in an interesting way. I have adapted his work with the following description. It is a bit like three blindfolded people who are experts in their field of study, and they're all touching an elephant. One will believe that it is a wall, one that it is a snake, and one will insist that it is the trunk of a tree. When describing the shape that they have each come into contact with, they are each absolutely correct. It does feel to one person like a wall, and another like a snake, and another like the trunk of a tree. But I believe we would all agree that it is neither a snake, tree trunk, or a wall, but rather an elephant. So, what if all religious or spiritual belief systems are only perceiving one part of the elephant? Or, as Mr. Johnson puts it, is it not possible that all religions are in contact with the same ultimate reality and merely describe it in different ways? I cannot help but believe that that is a very real possibility, as the similarities of both mysticism and some base of the Golden Rule exist in all belief systems. Perhaps it is like we all hold a brick of what used to be that Tower of Babel, and some are sure that they hold the entire mountain in their hand. Indeed, earth centered traditions such as Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, Taoism, Islam, and Buddhism have a similar base with slightly differing methods in which to carry out the Golden Rule. Philosopher John Hick developed a pluralistic hypothesis in his book, God Has Many Names. He wrote that the diverse religious expressions are the result of diverse historically and culturally influenced responses to diverse perceptions of the real. Also, writing that the different religious traditions, with their complex internal differentiations, have developed to meet the needs of the range of mentalities expressed in the different human cultures. He offers the same aforementioned tale of the three men trying to describe an elephant, as well as making an interesting comparison between Ptolemaic system and Copernican view of the solar system. The Ptolemaic system says that the stars were painted in the sky, and the earth was essentially the center of the universe. The sun and moon are rising and setting around the earth. Then Copernicus came on the scene and offered the hypothesis that both the earth and planets circle the sun. Hick offers that the standard Christian view of religion was a Ptolemaic one, and he offered a Copernican view that all theistic religions take different paths. It's all about that mountain, y'all. We keep coming back to it, and I believe that a monotheistic approach is indeed a path up that mountain. It's just not the only path. Author Manny Mendoza wrote that almost every week I meet people who describe themselves as spiritual but not religious. By this, they mean that they believe in something beyond themselves. They acknowledge mystery and wonder. They often pray, but without understanding or wanting to understand. What happens when they do? They value community. They think about the meaning of life. They connect with nature. The vast majority believe in a universal being or spirit. Personally, I also cannot help but think of Jesus himself. He reached out to those who were not religious, any rejected by society, such as tax collectors and prostitutes. He did not just embrace simple or easy answers. And moreover, he worshiped more often outside than inside any house of worship. He worshiped on the beach, in fields, by lakes, and on mountaintops. It's not about the path, it's about the journey. And each individual's journey will inevitably lead them on a different path, as human beings are so very different. Ramakrishna wrote that God can be realized through all paths. All religions are true. The important thing is to reach the roof. You can reach it by stone stairs or wooden stairs or by bamboo steps or by a rope. Some believe that being religious and being spiritual are one and the same thing. I believe that if your path does not cause another living being pain, then it's okay. You may consider it a holy path, or your fulfillment may come from a congregation like ours, family, friends, and loved ones. Holy or not, I find it wonderful that as a Unitarian Universalist, we honor one another's paths. I cannot imagine being filled with the love and devotion I feel here in particular, and as a UU as a whole. But perhaps James Madison said it best when he wrote that within the vast spaces of unity lies a multitude of spiritual paths, each holding the same equal validity. The wave is never separated from the ocean. While the instinct may be to ask ourselves which route is correct, the truth of it may be that the answer itself is mostly irrelevant. The universal theme of kindness and goodwill are always a brick, but the mortar may have changed with time, and that's okay. The route is right if you're traveling and helping more than you hurt. The question to ask yourself is, do I feel enriched by the steps I take? Am I leaving the world around me better than the way I found it? Is the route one that promotes a genuine kindness instead of a superficiality? Does it leave every part of myself seen and validated? Your answers may be complicated, but growth is asking the question regardless of the answer. It is good to question things because in doing so, we are better able to understand why we believe what we believe. Regardless of your answers, know that our congregation will be a soft place for you to land as you grow. In fact, may everyone go forth today knowing that they are supported, nay, embraced for every single part of themselves, embraced warmly upon their journey, spiritual or not. May we all be enriched by the journey. Blessed be and amen.